Thank you for tuning in to this special episode of Movie Geeks United. On October 25th and 28th, Fathom Events and Turner Classic Movies will present a double feature of both the English and Spanish language versions of 1931's Dracula on theater screens across the country. Along with the iconic Bela Lugosi version, fans will have the opportunity to watch the Spanish language version, which was shot with a different cast entirely and only at night, as well as hear insights on these 1931 vampire horror classics from TCM host Ben Mankiewicz. We were blessed to welcome Mr. Mankiewicz on our program to discuss all things Dracula prior to this intriguing double feature event. Mr. Mankiewicz comes from a highly accomplished lineage. His grandfather co-wrote Citizen Kane, his cousin performed script-writing duties on several James Bond pictures, and he is the great-nephew of the man who directed such classics as All About Eve. His father, meanwhile, was press secretary to Senator Robert Kennedy. These family connections inspired my last question to Mr. Mankiewicz regarding the current state of political films. Mr. Mankiewicz is admired by all classic film fans for his terrific work as a host at Turner Classic Movies. Tickets are now on sale for the Dracula double feature event. You can go to fathomevents.com for more details.
Now, I'm really excited about this special event. It's a Dracula 1931 double feature, and one of the reasons why I'm excited about it is because I don't think most people realize the manner in which these two films were produced in concert with one another. Could you explain some of the circumstances by which they were produced in that fashion?
Yeah, I think to both casual and serious film fans, it's just really cool. It's impossible not to respond to it. Yeah, so Todd Browning's version would get shot during the day, like a normal movie, and this was a critical time for Universal. They were losing a lot of money. They really needed a hit. I mean, this is often referred to as the movie that saved Universal. There may be some hyperbole there, but it was a significant movie for the studio. It may not even be hyperbole. So they shot this movie during the day, and then at night, the Spanish language crew would take over and had the distinct advantage of looking at Browning's rushes during the day, seeing what worked and what didn't. Which he resented enormously. And then they'd shoot this other version, the Spanish language version, at night. It was a reaction to sound where the studios had become quite used to being able to send these movies anywhere in the world because there was no sound, and so language was not an issue. This was an attempt to sort of keep the Spanish-speaking markets alive and working with sound in a really sort of, I guess, a cost-effective way. I don't guess. It's certainly a cost-effective way of doing it.
So, but was it a common practice, or was it rather rare, that kind of dual production at the time?
I wouldn't know how to characterize rare. I can characterize it as rare. I don't know exactly how often it happened, but it's definitely rare. And we know that eventually it stopped because we eventually just started subtitling and dubbing movies in other languages.
Right.
It's not like, that's not like you think, oh man, I love that German version of Citizen Kane that they shot at the same set with,
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be great, by the way. Yeah.
Now, tell me, let's talk a little bit about the American version first, and then we'll get into the Spanish version, because the Spanish version is particularly fascinating to me. But in terms of Lugosi's version, this was Todd Browning, the movie he did kind of previous to Freaks.
Yeah, these are certainly his sort of two probably best sound films, and he made them back to back at the apex of his career. But there's some similarity with Browning and Lugosi is that they're as you can see from both, that first 20 minutes of the American language or the English language version of Dracula, and this guy was a brilliant visual stylist. I no doubt he could have made many different kinds of movies, I mean, Todd Browning, I think he retired at the end of the 30s, but I mean, this guy could have made some really interesting noir thrillers, but everybody just, but he got typecast as a director the same way Lugosi got typecast for horror. That's probably, and there's some shame in that. I mean, they both made some money, but they could have done much more. But we had limited ways of thinking of people back then. We still do it now, but I think we've grown a little bit.
What else is interesting to me is I've often been fascinated by the notion of two directors tackling the same material, and just in terms of their own personal, unique directorial vision, how they might differ. We saw it to some extent with Psycho, and we know how well that went. But when you watch these two versions back to back, I mean, do you sense that distinct directorial style from each of them?
I think it's completely interesting to see how much say a director can have to show people who know it instinctively, but it's really interesting to see it. We don't get it much because nobody's going to, I mean, we do when Volcano and Dante's Peak come out at the same time, and White House Down and whatever the other identical movie that came out with Gerard Butler. And movie fans are like, how is it possible that we'd never seen a Volcano movie and then all of a sudden there are two released within an hour of each other? But yeah, so I think it's really interesting to see these guys take the same story and the same set and make completely different movies.
And the Spanish language was thought lost for some time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in the sense, I don't think thought lost. I think it was lost. I mean, it was somewhere, but nobody knew where. Or the right people didn't know where, because there wasn't a sense that it was, was an important find to many.
But when people go to this screening event, I mean, both of these versions are nicely restored, I would imagine.
Oh yeah. No, we're not. No, they look like crap. They're terrible. I don't know why anyone would. Yeah, no, yes, they've both been nicely restored. They'll see quality prints, and I should just get, a really. I mean, this isn't even an experience. Frequently the things we do with these events with Fathom and with Universal, we want to, we sell that we're recreating the experience that you would have had at the time. To some extent. I mean, we're not dressing in period, but we go into a movie and see, when we did Psycho and when we did Jaws, both were very successful, and we've done many others, but we sell it as get an experience, go to a theater with other movie fans and see the movie as it's meant to be seen, the way your father would have seen it, or your mom would have seen it, or your grandparents would have seen it in 1960. Nobody got a chance to do this in 1931. Nobody saw these movies back to back in a theater. This is an exceptional experience that we're offering.
Absolutely. If I can, I want to ask you just a couple of more quick questions, just two more quick questions.
Sure.
Like I said before, I am crazy about what you do, and a big part of that is because I am so fiercely loyal to TCM, as I know so many people are.
We have a rare relationship with the viewers that doesn't exist on television.
Yeah.
Anywhere else.
And it's particularly valuable, I think, because it seems like art nowadays, the kind of the public consciousness of it, and films in particular, has a very disposable quality. I mean, the way that people tend to regard them in the mainstream, it's all about opening weekend, and so it's so refreshing that a channel can point out, no, these things live, they're a part of our heritage.
That's right. I mean, nobody would be this dismissive of, we know instinctively not to be dismissive of books, right? Nobody sees somebody reading The Catcher in the Rye or God, what is literally wrong with me? Harper Lee,
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Kill a Mockingbird. Thank God, Jesus. Nobody, literally, but nobody would see somebody reading To Kill a Mockingbird, right? And say, oh, come on, the new one, the new one, the Watchmen came out. What are you doing reading that? Right? Like, I mean, it's just, we know that everyone around would mock that person, right?
Right.
But somehow, like, there's a sense that we have to go, no, these movies are valuable. These movies are worthy. Even if you were reading Mickey Spillane, right? Even if you were reading something that was sort of, pulp crime from the 50s, right? Nobody would be like, oh, come on, what are you reading that old crap for? They'd be like, oh, my God, cool, you're reading Mickey Spillane. And I think, thankfully, we have sort of driven our point home. I mean, I literally think in 20 years that TCM has been on the air, it has literally made a difference in the American consciousness about what it is to watch these movies. But yeah, because they are art and they are worthy of being protected.
Absolutely.
But it was a little bit of an uphill battle. Respecting the visual medium, I know that TCM has played a role in changing people's minds on that.
Well, either before or since you started working with them, has the channel introduced you to any particular titles that previously had flown under your radar?
Oh, I mean, I can't answer that question because, I mean, hundreds, thousands.
Yeah.
I mean, no question, stuff that's flown under my radar. And things that I didn't, but also many things that I'd seen and didn't, whatever. I've grown up. I mean, I grew up a lot between 25 and 35. What did I join TCM? I was 36. Yeah, I'm massively. And still, no question, to this day, there'll be stuff that, well, certainly there's still occasionally stuff I haven't seen, but there's stuff that I don't remember. I don't have as you got a glimpse of with the 22-second hand of not being able to remember the title of To Kill a Mockingbird. Like, I'll see stuff now, and I'll realize halfway through that I've seen it, but I'm seeing it in a completely different way.
Yeah. Well, here's my last question for you. Your family, your lineage. I mean, it's very rooted in film, but also in politics. And so I was curious, from your perspective. I grew up in the 70s, and in the 70s, the political film genre was essential. And I'm wondering where you think the political film is today.
I think they're pretty good now in general. We don't take politics terribly seriously. Cable news has done grave damage to the way we look at politics. And it has allowed cynicism, which is a healthy part of the political process, but it has allowed cynicism to completely take hold. We don't trust anybody. Few candidates speak in depth. When they do, they're dismissed. Everything is viewed as a horse race, and don't get me wrong, I love the horse race quality of it. And so I think it's also hurt the market for quality films. I mean, I think that, I'm certain that George Clooney could get, and we've seen that he has, but I'm sure he could get a movie like The Candidate made now, but there would be far less interest in making The Candidate now, I think, right? Because who wants to see a movie about a guy running for the Senate? Not interesting, dull, didn't trust him, not relatable. That would, I imagine, be a lot of the reaction. Nobody likes politics. I worked in television news for a long time. We didn't have a political reporter. My brother was a political reporter at WCBS in New York and then out here in Los Angeles before he went to Dateline. And there'd be big stories, and he'd be the eighth story they got to just because, there was a fire at a 7-Eleven, or a fight on a school bus, and somehow people would decide that this is more relevant to their lives. And we have gotten very cynical and very dismissive of politics. And I think that's a shame. And, you watch the last couple of debates, and you can't really say that the candidates haven't played a role in that. But that said, there's some good people, and forget the people. They're talking about important ideas that will affect everybody's lives, and I think it's a shame that we aren't producing consistently great political films now in this era where we're making so much great stuff, both on, it's interesting that the best shows, the best political shows that are working now are comedies. I mean, I love Veep, but we're not learning anything about Veep, and House of Cards is, but I mean, House of Cards is like, Earth's greatest soap opera.
It really is, yeah. But don't you think that in terms of the political film, it's a fear of alienating a portion of your audience that keeps filmmakers from fully embracing the form?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's incredibly short-sighted because there's still, I mean, how many people do you want to see your movie? I mean, you don't need everybody. You just need some people. Like, you can't, like, big deal. So alienate some people,
No, I agree with you.
It's okay.
I agree with you, but
yeah, I mean, I don't know that that's true because it seems so obviously flawed. I mean, the best thing a filmmaker can do and the best thing a politician can do is, I'll quote the late Mario Cuomo, who, I mean, like the idea when he said about the death penalty. I mean, this was a guy, who ended up being an incredibly frustrating person because he didn't run. But when he said, "Hey, look, if you're not going to vote for me because I'm in favor, because I'm against the death penalty, then okay, don't vote for me. That's it. That's the end of our conversation. I've made my case. If you don't want to believe it, that's fine. Then don't vote for me if that's important enough to you." And that sort of dismissiveness of, "Hey, look, I'm not going to get that guy. Don't care. Moving on. I'm going to talk to the people I can get." And that's the sort of decision making that creative people need to make. Yeah, I mean, so you may be right, but that strikes me as enormously short-sighted. If and I don't think I can't get. I'll lose 60 million people, but there's 71 million people I could get.
Well, I personally don't think that the filmmakers feel that way. I was speaking more of the people that put up the money for their movie.
Yeah, the people that put up the money. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's I mean, it goes to we I was on some of the other shows that I've done in my life before. Some during TCM. I mean, the difference between a successful show on cable television, right? Like some sort of reality show, and I don't mean that, and that could span everything from, a quality show about, I don't just mean the Kardashians, right? I mean, there's some reality shows that are incredibly cool on TV, that expose you to how other people live their lives that you wouldn't otherwise see. But if you can get 1 million people to watch, you're a giant success. If you get 600,000 people to watch, there's a good chance you're going to get canceled.
Yeah.
Every week. And that's crazy. Right? That's just 400,000 people, and neither of them are big numbers. But if you're drawing 1.3 million people on your show on the Sci-Fi Network or on, Nat Geo or something like that, you're a success. And if it's at 652, you're like, oh, I don't know, we didn't make it. It's just weird. And so no one there would think, oh, we're going to alienate half the population. You dream half the population. You're never going to have